Hi, my name is Gerhard Schwantner and welcome to Selling Power TV. Today we have the pleasure of meeting with Justin Sapula. He's managing partner with Janek Performance Group. Welcome, Justin.
Great, thanks for having me.
Can we shrink our horizon and focus on microlearning?
Sure.
What are the advantages of microlearning?
Yeah, there's a lot of advantages. It's something that's been coming on really strong in the last few years. I think there's a few reasons for that, but there's a lot of research that shows if you chunk down the learning into smaller segments and you deliver that learning to participants over time, the retention goes way up. I mean, through the roof retention. This is something that we've implemented at Janek and have been really successful with. We've also added a component to the microlearning, which is testing as well. So we find that combining these two items have been really successful for us. So we're chunking down learning into smaller segments, and we're also testing folks on that learning at different intervals, so they're getting some feedback in terms of how they're doing, so they know where to focus their time and energy.
So you're talking about the salesperson. Let's shift over to the sales manager. Let's talk about the observations that sales managers make. Yeah. And the coaching that comes from that observation.
Sure. Yeah, this is a really important component as well. A lot of this comes down to companies are investing in training, sales training. One of the things that I saw recently was the global market last year was estimated at $2.5 billion in sales training investments last year. So we're spending a lot of money on training and in sales training especially. But how do we really maximize the value from that sales training? How do we make sure that we really get a return on our investment from the time and the money that's spent? And one of those aspects is getting managers involved. There has to be a good process to support learners after training. I think there's a lot of time and energy spent on the training, making sure that you got the content right, and you got a good trainer, and you got a good environment, and there's a whole lot of energy, put into that. But after the training, I believe, is really where you can maximize your return. So we want managers to understand their role in this, that they need to be out in the field observing these behaviors and seeing if what was taught in the classroom is actually happening in the field, and if they're doing it well. And then giving them some coaching and feedback so that way they can move from learning information to performing and getting better results.
So what's your guideline or your advice to sales managers that are listening to this? How do you improve that?
How do you improve their coaching?
No, the observation.
Oh, the observation. Well, they need to know it better than anybody else. I mean, that's an expectation going into that we'll set with our clients. Anytime they talk about what are the recipes for success, what do we need to do to make this be successful? And one of the first things that we bring up is the sales leadership team, sales management team. And not only do we want them in the class participating, but we really want them to put some extra energy and effort to really understand the content. Because it's one thing to know it, right? So I can pass a test and I understand the process or the steps in the process, but to be able to observe it in others requires a higher level learning, right? And a higher level thinking. So I think the first commitment to get better at it is to really know your subject matter, so that way you can really spot out the right things and then coach to those items, right, that are in the field. Right. So I think you have to really know the content. And then you have to do the next part, which is to be a good coach. Right, and actually coach salespeople so they can do a better job at whatever it is that you're coaching them on.
Right. Well, let's shift on what salespeople can learn from their peers.
Yeah, I think we have a program at Janek that we've implemented that's called peer-to-peer, and it's part of our integrated reinforcement strategy. And then we do surveys and we get feedback from clients, and this is always at the top of the list of something that salespeople appreciated. And while when we started this, we knew there was going to be a benefit to it, but I think even we were surprised by how much people really enjoyed it. A salesperson really enjoyed getting together with their peers. So I think at the end of the day, salespeople enjoy talking with their peers and talking with somebody who does their job day in and day out and who they can relate to, who deal with the same challenges, and they have an opportunity to collaborate. Okay, so what we do is we set up a process that allows them to make these activities happen, but we give them some tools and some guidelines so that way the activity of the peer-to-peer sessions is highly effective. But it's constantly something that we get really great feedback on, that salespeople appreciate the opportunity to learn from their peers, to collaborate, and come up with strategies themselves, right, for folks that are working in the field doing the same job.
So you encourage the creativity where they learn from each other.
Absolutely.
What is your take on gamification and learning?
Yeah, so I think this goes right with microlearning, right, with us. So we see a total reinforcement strategy as a couple components. One are formal activities that managers are doing, and you have informal activities, and then you have the learner also needs to contribute. Right? So when we look at microlearning, we want to make sure that we get good engagement. And so gamification is something that's been around probably the last 5 or 7 years now. It's been really integrated into various aspects. But gamification is really just about increasing engagement, right? Increasing adoption. So we want to make it fun for people. Salespeople have a competitive nature, right? So if you put a competition together and you put a leaderboard and there's a first and there's a last, you get people involved. Right. So have some fun with it. A lot of these programs, I know for us at Janik, we have microlearning that also has gamification attached to it, and we have some fun with this. It could really drive adoption, it drives engagement, it makes it fun, and ultimately, you're getting the outcome you want to get. You want people to learn this, to get good at it, to get proficient at it, and have some fun and use the salespeople for their passions and what they have, which is to compete. Use that to help you get to where you want to go.
So what does that look like when somebody goes and engages in a micro-learning unit? Do they get a scoreboard? Or?
Yeah, so there's leaderboards, there's badges, and then we do competitions. We could set up competitions in a different way. But ultimately, if you do a good job on the testing aspect and complete the activities that you'd like to do, you get points.
Right.
And those points ultimately roll up to
right.
a leaderboard or first place or last place or badges or things like that. So we see this in a lot of the social games and various other applications. So you bring this into learning in that same kind of aspect, and it keeps it fun, keeps it interesting.
Yeah. How can people learn more about Janik?
Go to www.janik.com and you can find lots of different content that will be helpful in this area. We publish white papers, we publish articles, there's blogs, and you can go in and sign up for as much or as little as you want. But there's a good amount of information out there for sellers and sales managers, people interested in the sales profession.
Plus, there is a survey that Janik and Selling Power did together that is very interesting material.
Yeah, it's going to be released in the next couple of weeks, so look out for that.
So thank you so much, Tristan.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much.